There is only one NFL team right now that is undefeated. Bear down
That's
Chicago
right.
Bears. And it took
Yes, I love it.
it took a weather delay. It took literally an act of God for it to just absolutely fall for the Bears that they start the year 1-0. And I'm already team Ripon over Badgett. Brett Ripon was fantastic.
He was
fantastic.
he lit it up. Yeah.
He was, and I expected Tyson Bagent to start like the whole first half of the Hall of Fame game, Dan. And it was the Brett Ripon show. I don't even know how to say his name. Ripon.
Yeah, it's Ripon. You got it. You got it the first time.
And and he was electric. I mean, he looked accurate. He looked like he was running the offense. Tyson Bagent in his one series just looked like it looked like I was watching Justin Fields 2.0, like just an athlete who was trying to make a play. So I pray to the football gods that Caleb Williams looks like a way better Brett Ripon, who also can be an athlete who makes a play. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. For sure. No, we were finally treated to some football, and that's awesome. I was just excited to watch some actual football. It was a little sloppy, but that's what's to be expected in the first game of the year and a preseason game nonetheless. But yeah, a lot of footballs on the ground there in that game, especially in the middle portion. But really cool to see the Bears in action. The Hall of Fame game is cool overall. I dig it. I know it's a little wonky and weird to have like one or two teams have that extra preseason game every year, but it's cool to kick off the Hall of Fame weekend with stuff like that and have a marquee game to get people excited about once again. I was bummed because, I got rid of my cable subscription and just enrolled in NFL Plus to start getting some games in Red Zone. And of course, this game was on, ESPN. So it was
ABC.
and ABC and our ABC affiliate in town, the antenna doesn't get that far. It's the one. So I was left trying to stream a preseason game illegally, and that just felt weird.
I have a site for you. I'll send it to you out of the chat.
Okay, right on.
I'll send it to the chat. It's not a show topic. I also want to quickly just say, if you're tuning into the Football Lounge, I wasn't here last week. Dan did a great job in that interview. Go watch last week's episode. Really, really great stuff. We want to do more stuff like that, right? Getting incredible insight from insiders. If you look, you notice you're like, wait, Mark's not in his normal Kick FM radio station studio. I will no longer be in that studio. There's been some life career changes, hence why I'm dressed up in a monkey suit right now, and not with the backwards hat and in a polo or something else like that. And so we'll touch on that soon-ish. Not this episode, but soon-ish we'll be able to kind of give you the details on the change. But this will be now the new format of Mark's version of the Football Lounge, my in-home studio. As Dan is at home, I'm now at home as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Coming to you from our homes to yours, and I like the Hespin Studios. It's very nice, and of course it's decked out with some Bears fandom. I like the FanDuel.
My FanDuel ball, yeah.
Is that signed by Rob Gronkowski by chance?
It is not.
That would be so sweet.
So during the FanDuel Kick of Destiny, the whole thing, FanDuel was hosting a big event gathering at the Phoenix Suns Stadium. Because remember, that Super Bowl was in Arizona.
Yeah.
And that football is actually signed by former Phoenix Suns player Cam Johnson, who was then a week later, I think, traded to the Brooklyn Nets. And now I don't think he's even on a team right now. So it's my FanDuel football.
So that's a relic.
From Phoenix, signed by Cam Johnson.
Yeah, might be the last thing he signed in Phoenix. So that's
we'll just say it's signed by Rob Gronkowski.
Exactly. I'm good with that. Yeah, I'm sure Rob's signatures alone are pretty indistinguishable from Scribble. Anyway,
I got him to sign a Rob Gronkowski rookie card for my brother-in-law. So I did get him to sign something during the Kick of Destiny.
Right on. I like it. Very nice. Well, we are here to talk and play catch up a little bit. Mark mentioned you were out last week. Had a great episode talking with Dakota Randall from Pro Football Network about the Patriots, the state of the team. That was really cool to get some early insight into how camp is going. Drake May, Gerard Mayo, a lot of new stuff going on there. If you haven't already, go give that episode a listen and a watch. Dakota's great and provided a lot of really good information as we launch ourselves into the preseason. But during that time that we were gone, it's been a couple weeks here, Mark, since you and I were able to connect and kind of talk shop and bring some news to the folks there at home. We've had two quarterbacks get some pretty mega deals. Jordan Love and Tua Tagavailoa get some big money, securing the bag there for their respective teams. Probably not terribly shocking, but we're definitely going to dive into that and what that means for the state of the quarterback position, what it means for these two teams to get this out of the way going into the preseason. We had the Hall of Fame, as we mentioned, that weekend of the Hall of Fame game. So want to discuss a little bit of that too, and just a couple other news items and things of note. So I guess we can start with really quickly just recapping Hall of Fame weekend. It was fantastic as always. Some extra worthy players being inducted in this year's class. Patrick Willis among them, Dwight Freeney. We had Julius Peppers, Devin Hester, Steve McMichael, 3 former Chicago Bears on that list. I know not a lot of people think of Julius Peppers, but
he said bear down in his speech. That was one of the highlights of it, was that he was a Carolina guy. I think he would admit that he's like Carolina's Hall of Famer, and then spend time with the Bears and the Packers. But he gave a huge shout out to the Chicago Bears. And I really I wouldn't say shocked by that, but it landed for me, because obviously Hester and Mongo went in as Bears. And as you know, or you should know, all the casuals out there, the Chicago Bears have more Hall of Famers than anyone else. We're at growing that list. Hester's bust looked phenomenal with the hair, with the dreadlocks.
I thought McMichael's bust looked amazing.
His looked really good
badass.
Too. His looked really good too. Hall of Fame weekend's always really fun. I love to see who these guys decide to bring. Lovie Smith got a big, chant, and it's just it makes me feel old. I mean, we're in our early 30s, but it makes me feel old when you got guys like Devin Hester, who's like kids are now like teenagers running around, and these are now these guys going to the Hall of Fame over the last couple of years, and the next couple of years, we're in the heart of like these were our kind of childhood, early formative football fan, dominant players. So that's one of the things that's still wild to see to me. And the other thing I love about Hall of Fame weekend, Dan, is they always announce then who's eligible for the next Hall of Fame. Did you see that list? The first timers eligible.
I actually saved that as one of the tabs here.
Okay, good. Bring it on up.
But go ahead, fire away.
I think that's one of the fascinating things. And obviously, I tweeted out, to me, there are 3 people that just quickly looking at the list feel like no brainer, easy first ballot guys, and that's Adam Vinatieri, Eli Manning, and Luke Kuechly. Those were the 3 names that came up to me. There's a lot of people on the list felt deserving, but those were the 3 that were like, that's a first ballot guy.
Yeah, Marshawn Lynch was an interesting one because I never actually gave it much thought. I get it, but he's also a guy that just had a really solid career and a really good kind of renaissance to his career, but I don't think of him as like a Hall of Famer. I don't think of him among the greats at the position, or just among the greats in terms of players in NFL history. He's a great player in general, but not maybe amongst the best of the best. So that was one that I thought was interesting. Totally. Yeah, I agree with you in terms of the, surefire first ballots. The only one who maybe I think would be in consideration for that list would be Marshall Yanda, because he was such a dominant guard. But a lot of guards and a lot of offensive linemen in general don't tend to make the first ballot unless they were unbelievable.
The Joe Thomases of the world. It's an interesting list. I agree. Marshawn Lynch is like he's like Hall of Fame guy, but player like Hall of very good. Total Hall of very good player.
Although his speech would be one
like
for
if
the
I
ages.
was a well, that's true. If I was a LaShawn McCoy, because we've kind of debated on LaShawn McCoy, why I think LaShawn McCoy is not a Hall of Famer. And like if LaShawn McCoy doesn't get in, but Marshawn gets in, I would be pissed if I'm LaShawn McCoy, because numbers wise and actual in-game impact, you could argue LaShawn McCoy way more deserving than a Marshawn Lynch. So if you don't think LaShawn is deserving, and I don't, and then I definitely have to agree that Marshawn's not deserving, even though he has an iconic play with the Beastquake. and the grab the crotch. He's got iconic sound bites. I can't think of an iconic LaShawn McCoy sound bite. And
fair.
And I mean, and he's got the Super Bowl ring. You know what I mean? So maybe, but yeah, I'm Eli, Adam Vinatieri, Luke Kuechly, first ballot guys.
Yeah, there's clear front runners. Before we move on, I do want to ask like what it was like for you as a Bears fan. I mean, I was getting pretty emotional when I saw Steve McMichael getting inducted because we know too that he was kind of the last of the 85 Bears and was waiting forever, and it was arguable that he should have been at least one of the middle guys to get inducted, certainly not the last. And he's obviously been talking about it and seems to be just an all around great guy. For him to be able to experience this moment clearly with the extreme conditions that he's facing with his battle with ALS, for him to see him there obviously was it was a dark moment, but a light moment at the same time, right? It was hard to watch, but it was also like, I'm really glad that he's alive to experience this moment.
Well, the NFL screwed up because him, a lot like Richard Dent waited way too long to get in. And Mongo should have been in with Dan Hampton and Richard Dent a long time ago. And also, if you don't know Steve McMichael, if you're not in the Chicago lore, growing up, we obviously saw a lot of Mongo because Mongo was the guy with the personality who was on Chicago TV talking Bears, on Chicago radio talking Bears. We got robbed of an incredible speech because of ALS and because the NFL waited way too long to get Mongo in. They righted their wrongs by getting him in and him getting to be alive to experience it in some capacity, at least, seeing it and viewing it, surrounded by friends and families and other Hall of Famers from that 85 team. But yeah, we got robbed and the NFL screwed up because he would have been an electric speech. If you think Marshawn Lynch's speech would have been good, that's Mongo. Mongo is all personality. He is a Charles Barkley-esque figure as far as like shoot by the hip, kind of just, I'm going to no filter, say what's on my mind. He always was an all-time great Chicago radio personality, game day TV personality as well. So we got robbed, but obviously important that he's in there and he will forever be immortalized amongst football's greats where he belonged in a long time ago.
Yeah, very cool as well to see Devin Hester pave the way for potentially future.
I love that part of his speech.
Yeah, that was really cool to say that there are other deserving kick returners.
The
in
first,
the hall,
but not the last. I think it was his quote. Yeah.
So it's pretty cool to see that kind of have those doors opened in that way. All right, let's segue now over to a couple bits of news before we discuss the Tua and Jordan Love contracts.
Yeah.
There's been several injuries, a lot kind of minor overall in camp, and so for us to go through even the majority of them is kind of a waste of time. But among the most concerning or the most notable is that Justin Herbert now is dealing with the plantar fascia, and I've seen a lot of medical doctors online who also dabble in the conversations of football discussing how the plantar fascia, even though, and this is a layman understanding and I'm paraphrasing, of course, is something that even though, yes, he will likely be good to go at the beginning of the season and be able to play, it's going to be something that's going to be painful, it seems, and bothering him for the entire season. It's not going to be something that goes away. And, that's the part of the foot, essentially, that binds your heel to the arch of the foot. So we're talking about planting, running, accelerating. Obviously not great news to kick things off for the Chargers with the, Jim Harbaugh regime. But I will say, at least they're going to be able to run the ball quite a bit this year, and he'll be able to lean on that a little bit.
It's a terrible news. I would immediately sit him. I would keep him in a boot.
Yeah, no reps
for the remainder of the preseason. You know what I mean? Just mental reps, keeping him physically strong, and let him do stuff with the arm, and maybe throwing some stuff with receivers in practice when he feels good. But it's just brutal. I thought you were going to go with the most impactful injury news. DeAndre Hopkins out at least 4 to 6 weeks. Bears play the Titans week 1. I love that news. I had to sneak that in. I think, obviously we know what Jim Harbaugh does for quarterbacks. If you don't know what Jim Harbaugh does for quarterbacks, you haven't been watching Jim Harbaugh football since he got to Stanford. And he was doing it before Stanford as well at San Diego State. He takes the ball out of his quarterback's hands. He builds a physical offensive line and a physical offense that's going to lean on running the football. Greg Roman and those Ravens teams and those 49ers teams is going to be unique power run schemes football. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards are going to get a ton of carries, and the Chargers are going to come out and try to be a physical football team. That will help with Justin Herbert, but man, it's one of those things. This is that time of the year where you're so excited, right? We got our first preseason game. We have a couple big preseason games coming up here this week. I have 2 I want to mention later on in the show that I think are really worth your time watching as a fan. But these are the stories out of camp, right, that just gut you. And you hope that in week 8, week 9, week 10, we're not still talking about, is Justin 100%? I don't know if he's 100%, because that's the thing that just, it kills a season, right? It kills not only the Chargers fan base, but for us as football fans wanting to see that primetime Mahomes Herbert matchup in week 8. And it's like, well, Herbert was out for another 2 weeks trying to rest that foot injury that he got in camp. And you don't want to be talking about that stuff come October, November.
Yeah, for sure. That is something that shouldn't enter the equation in terms of the narrative surrounding their season. Yeah. They've got plenty of other things that they need to worry about. And it's a big year for the Chargers in general and Justin Herbert, gotta try and, get over the hump there and get some playoff success going, which I think we're both confident Jim Harbaugh can get them to at this stage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk about Tyreek Hill. This kind of followed news that he was voted by his peers as the number 1 overall player in the NFL on the NFL Top 100, which, if anything is to be taken from that list, it's that almost nobody is worse at evaluating NFL players than apparently NFL players themselves.
Dude.
I kid a little bit, of course, but at the same time, it does seem to be a very much a popularity contest amongst the players. Patrick Mahomes not even coming in at number 2, but number 4 in the league. He's clearly the number 1 best player in the NFL. And most people would agree with that statement. Nonetheless, Tyreek Hill, obviously a dynamic and probably the best playmaker in the league. So he definitely deserved to be up there. And then afterwards, Miami, it was announced, restructured his deal to make it a 3-year, $90 million deal, 65 of it guaranteed. This pushes his deal. It was set to expire after next season. So this pushes it 1 additional year, essentially, even though no additional years were added to the contract. It kind of just spreads money out. It's a little weird how that whole thing goes, but he's going to play through that contract, he says. And so, yeah, Tyreek Hill doesn't seem to be slowing up much anymore. But now this contract, he's got mouths to feed, over $105 million.
Yeah, well, he's got mouths to feed, and
he sure does. He has another child on the way, number 11 or 12 for him. I don't know.
2 things. I want to start with Tyreek Hill, then I want to go back to the list and talk a little Patrick Mahomes here really quickly, because I think that
let's do it.
I have a take on it that I haven't necessarily heard anyone say yet, so I want to get it out there. First and foremost, the Tyreek Hill deal, I think it's a great deal, and again, it just speaks volumes about how badly the Bengals and the Cowboys have mismanaged their wide receiver contracts. But when the season ended, we knew there were 3 wide receivers that had to get paid: Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and CeeDee Lamb. They had to get paid. And Justin Jefferson got the historic deal. And since then, who else has gotten deals? Amon-Ra St. Brown, big deal. Yeah. DJ Moore, big deal. Tyreek Hill, restructure, big deal. All getting the guys a big money. Jalen Waddle, big deal. And you look at it now, all of a sudden, you're saying to yourself, if the Cowboys and the Bengals would have been on top of this, they could have got those deals in earlier, before the Justin Jefferson deal, before maybe the Amon-Ra St. Brown deal, and they could have reset the market, right? Like right around a little bit more than A.J. Brown. And they'd be now looking like geniuses, paying their top 2 wide receivers in the league money, less than a DJ Moore, less than a Tyreek Hill, less than a, insert name here, a Jalen Waddle, right? But now the price just keeps going up and up and up and up for CD and Jamar Chase. And you start to wonder if the Cowboys and Bengals are just getting to the point where they just can't pay it, and they're just not going to pay it. And then are we going to be in a year from now talking about franchise tags for those two players and these guys wanting them out and maybe never getting the big money? It's a really unique situation. I would also argue, if I was the agent for a Jamar Chase and a CeeDee Lamb, don't fall into the Baker Mayfield category, right? Like, these deals, you think I'm worth this much. At some point in time, $90 million guaranteed is generational wealth, right? Like, that is life-changing generational wealth. Maybe just take the deal, right? Because if you wait and you don't do anything, you play this year, even if you, knock on wood, stay healthy, you might get franchise tagged. And then you got to knock on wood. Like, sometimes just take the deal. Like, the deal, this is insane money they're throwing around. Don't try to overplay your hand like a Le'Veon Bell did, and then he ended up with nothing and very little than what he was expecting, and his career just fizzled out. Now, I don't think necessarily CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase's career will fizzle out, but the market can change on you quick. Now, I want to then go back to the Patrick Mahomes thing with Tyreek Hill top 100. To me, the bigger news from this is not that the players can't evaluate talent, but I think the bigger news is that whole, like, the Chiefs are fun. We love the Chiefs. They're kind of cool. Pat's cool.
Fading.
I think it's starting to really fade and wear thin to where guys in the NFL are like, somebody beat them. Somebody kick their teeth in. Somebody bounce the Chiefs in the first round of the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like, somebody put these boys back in check. And I think that is a little bit of it. It's that, like, hey, a lot of players still respect him. He's the best player. He probably got a ton of first votes. But how you'd fall to fourth is because you're being disrespected by a ton of guys with them going, that guy, that dude is just, everyone loves him, but he's not actually that great. You're seeing the Raiders come out with the Patrick Mahomes puppet. Now you have this. And what's crazy about it is Patrick Mahomes doesn't have Tyreek Hill anymore. He barely has a wide receiver number one. We don't even know. Rashid Rice is probably going to have to miss some time at some point in time this year. They drafted a rookie. Can Worthy be anything? And he's winning Super Bowls 2 back-to-back without Tyreek Hill. Like, he's better, and he lost the top weapon. So for you to make the argument that he's not the number one player is dumb, but it also, I think, shows that the NFL and guys, these elite levels, Jamar Chase wouldn't even say his name in the countdown. Remember? That speaks real volumes about this Chiefs story. We said it years ago. If they keep winning, eventually you become the Patriots, right? Where you're just like, I'm really sick of these guys winning. The only dynasty in modern sports I can think of in our lifetimes that we didn't get sick of them was the San Antonio Spurs. And that's because the culture and the star of Tim Duncan were so cool and level-headed and not flashy. You just respected them. You didn't hate on them, even though they won 5 rings in a span and stopped LeBron and other people from winning rings.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And if we know anything about what these types of athletes of Patrick Mahomes' caliber are like, this is not going to do anything but create unnecessary motivation, and some teams are about to get it.
It's going to be
so. Mahomes, have yourself a year. I'm sure it's going to be great. But yeah, the parallels to the Patriots don't end at just the hatred of being great and the rings and all of that. We're also talking about a legendary quarterback with a legendary tight end, and not much else outside of them at the skill positions. And so, yeah, we'll see if the Xavier Worthies of the world, if Rashid Rice takes the next step in year 2, they could be very, very dangerous. And this offense only seems to be improving, which is scary to think about going into next season. So I like where you took that conversation, because that was an important point to make. About how the league is viewing this, and they're ready for another champion.
We're in the football lounge. All takes are allowed.
So Jordan Love becomes the highest paid player in NFL history.
He does.
He's now tied, with 2 players for the title of that. 4-year, $220 million extension. worth $55 million per season. So that's the record right there, 55 per year. And then Tua gets just a little bit less than that, gets a 4-year extension, $212 million at 53.1 per year. The Jordan 1 Love, I still think was a slight overpay, but again, it's just the market you're in. It's the situation. We've talked about this. The 201 was more concerning to me, even though it was less money. Obviously they have comfort with him in the system. They have comfort with where he's progressed. And so, hey, man, get your money. That's great. I'm happy for Tua and I'm happy for Jordan Love. But it does, again, put us in that, bracket that you have to talk about where the state of the NFL is going and what these owners, what these GMs have to basically concede when they get a quarterback. They have to know he's either going to be great or he's going to be good enough. And both of those are going to have to equal big money. And if they're bad, then we can reset and do this whole thing. But if they're just good and good enough, that's gonna break the bank for sure.
So I got a question for you. Read the Jordan Love contract again. Read it for me again.
Yeah, 4-year extension, $220 million, a total of $55 million per year over the 4 years. That ties him with Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence.
Okay, so can you
$75 million signing bonus, by the way.
Now, Now, can you also look up? I just did, and I want to see, or just think off the top of your head. What was Trevor Lawrence's contract? Do you remember?
His was, he had an extra year in there, right? It was 5 years, 275 million.
275. So what's really interesting to me is what I was the most I was shocked about with the Jordan Love thing was it was only 4 years. Like, why crunch this into a 4-year extension? Which I get it because he's already in contract for this year, so it's 5 years. But Trevor Lawrence, same thing. They already picked up the option. Like, it's a 5-year extension onto his contract.
Sure.
The longer the contract, the easier it is to spread this money. So what I find really fascinating by this is that the Packers are saying to themselves, or maybe Jordan Love said, I only want a 4-year, and that's what they were arguing over. I would love to know exactly who wanted the 4 years, right? Because if the Packers wanted the 4 years, it speaks volumes of that they worry that this could be a guy that they don't 1,000,000% believe in, and they're going to basically, it's like a 2-year contract, and then they can kind of get out of it, right? Heavy front-loaded $75 million signing bonus. Let's move some money around, and then if we have to get out of it, we get out of it. If it was Jordan Love that wanted the 4 years, that's a greedy mother, you know what? Because that's all him just saying is, I want to get to the next contract before I'm 30, right? Like, I want to dip into my toes again at that age of 30 to get that another giant contract. So to me, that was really interesting. I fully expected Jordan Love to be Trevor Lawrence, but I expected it to be 5 years. So I was shocked by the 4 years. I will just say this. I've said it on this show before. I've said it on my old show that no longer exists. I will continue to say it. The pressure that these contracts come with, it is so make or break. You saw what happened with Lamar Jackson. He played worse before he got the deal. He got the deal, and what did he do? He won the MVP last year. So certain guys rise to the occasion. Other guys, we've seen them get the pressure of the contract. Kyler, really bad year after the contract. Deshaun Watson, 2 really bad years after the contract. There's other examples.
Chris Johnson was a prime example. Chris Johnson got that massive payday for the Titans and then almost immediately started.
Oh, well, yeah. Off. Running back. Yeah. I'm trying to think of other quarterback examples. I had somebody, but so it's Justin Herbert last year, big year. Jalen Hurts, big contract, both down years, right? Where you'd argue Justin Herbert's coach got fired, and Jalen Hurts, his coach is one of the hottest seats going into the year this year. And we can all say you went from an MVP candidate to a guy who had a below average now year, what we think for Jalen Hurts. So to me, if you're a Packers fan, you've got to be saying to yourself, which category is Jordan Love going to fall under? Is he going to fall under the Lamar Jackson, now rise to expectations and be like, I got my money, I feel secure, now I'm going to ball out? Or does he fall into the, holy crap, the world is now on my shoulders. Every press conference is more taxing, is more trouble, it's more frustrating, and I crumble under it a little bit. So Packers fans are in a world of hurt now. I will also say, with the numbers the way they are, Bears fans and Commanders fans could be staring down the barrel of a $90 million signing bonus in a couple of years if things go the way they go.
Easily.
And that is a scary, scary thing. Tua, his quarterback classmate. Now, all 5 of those guys got their big deals, right? Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa. Who else was in that draft? Lamar. Was it Josh Allen? No.
That was 2020 draft.
So it's Jordan Love, Joe Burrow, Tua. Jalen Hurts, second round pick. It was Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. There you go.
So those 5 guys have all gotten big contracts now, and none of those 5, Jalen Hurts made a Super Bowl, but none of those 5 have won an MVP or won a Super Bowl.
Burrow made the Super Bowl too. Yeah.
Burrow made a Super Bowl. Okay, so Burrow and Hurts made Super Bowls. So you could argue they're the ones that we would say who's deserving of the money. I would argue Burrow and Hurts were the deserving of the money guys. Herbert and Love, it's a projection. And Tua, to me, is the guy who I'd argue is not deserving of the size of the contract he got. The numbers on Tua, you can give him again here in a second, but I stand by the fact that I would have just said, Tua, we're going to go with 4 years, $160 million fully guaranteed. We'll give you fully guaranteed $160 million at $40 million a year, and you're going to live in Miami like a king and win a bunch of football games. And let's try to go get the 1 seed so we can actually maybe have a chance to win in the playoffs.
Yeah, this one 212 there, 4 years for Tua. We've got week 1 of the preseason here. Officially week 1. The Hall of Fame game stands on its own. I know you've got a couple games that you're interested to see early on. What you got?
Really quickly, I have 2 games I think are. Let me pull up my NFL schedule here that I'm like, oh, you know what? Hey, I know it's the preseason, but these are actually worthwhile. And it's the Thursday night game, the first game on the NFL Network, Panthers-Patriots. We should get a real look at Bryce Young and this new system with Canales, his new head coach. And we should get a real look at Drake May. There was reports last week out of camp that Joe Milton out of Tennessee was actually giving Drake May a run for his money as far as like who's the rookie quarterback who was drafted in the first round versus the 6th round. Fascinating matchup for that realm. And then to me, Dan, the other one involves your team, the Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Justin Fields, how much does he play? They take on the Texans. I want to read you a quote. I screenshotted this, and I'm surprising you with it here on the show. ESPN's Dan Graziano reports that his belief that Justin Fields and not Russell Wilson will be starting week 1 for the Steelers, according to Dan Graziano. And a lot of this is we haven't got to talk about it. Russell Wilson got hurt during conditioning, and Justin Fields has taken every first-team rep. And apparently in first padded practice, 2 days ago, he didn't miss a throw and had a really nice touchdown to George Pickens. He's been impressive in camp.
He has been lights out. A friend of the show and former collaborator, Alex Kozora. He's been on the show. We've talked to him
great.
Before.
We should get him back.
Incredible. Yeah, definitely. He does incredible write-ups. He goes to training camp and practice and logs every snap of everything that happens. Yeah. This is what he tweeted. Working on my training camp stats from the Steelers' last 6 practices. Here are Justin Fields' numbers. 65 of 88. That's a 74% completion percentage. 637 yards, 14 touchdowns, 2 picks.
Against a very good Steelers defense.
Against a very good defense. This is against the first team and obviously second team thrown in there too, but this is a lot of first team. And yes, some of this is not bad.
And you only have George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth.
Yeah. I mean, he and George Pickens have had quite a relationship already forming there. So yeah, the stats are what they are. Take it with a grain of salt. But you know what those stats aren't? They're not 15 of 80 for 200 yards, 17 picks, and 3 touchdowns. So something is working, and there's definitely pressure if the best of ability is availability. And right now, Russell Wilson just got started taking meaningful snaps in practice. I think they're going to give him quite a bit in the preseason here to like see what he's actually doing in the system, because Justin Fields does right now have the upper hand in terms of reps. I would still be surprised as it stands today if he's the starter. I think Russell Wilson still has the benefit of the doubt. Tomlin loves his veterans, but leash is getting shorter by the day.
I will say this. So I went through multiple training camps with Justin Fields, and I've seen a lot of Bears Twitter reacting kind of poorly, like, we've heard this before. Not really. Every single off season with Justin Fields and training camp with him so far has been one day, holy crap, wow, look at this throw, look at this run. The next day, he just was a little, timing was off. The offensive line struggled, so he really struggled at timing. And so this is the most consistent news I've heard out of Justin Fields in a training camp so far. Does it shock me? No. His NFL career is on the line. He is in a really, really sound organization now that, let's be frank, is actually putting resources into him. The Bears, you could argue, until they traded for DJ Moore, were not putting resources really into Justin Fields. And so, he had 2 years of struggle and kind of a disaster before he even got any sort of resources to be for him. And I think we both argue right now, offensive line-wise, Steelers, what they were right now, certainly better than what Justin Fields had in Chicago last year. So I think it's really fascinating. I think it's a must-watch game. They take on the Texans. But you're watching for those storylines. I think Bryce Young is going to be a fascinating storyline in the preseason. I think that what's going on in New England with Drake May is going to be really fun to watch because the reports are so wishy-washy, and obviously Pittsburgh with Justin Fields. Very interesting, Dan. I'm going to consume it. I'm going to consume it all. That's for sure.
I'm very much looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot to look out for this upcoming weekend. We've got a lot of football games. Football is back officially. Super excited for it. And we will be back next week with a full recap from those preseason games and any news that comes up over the next several days. We've got some trade rumors still circling. We've got Brandon Ayuk questions and more. So stay tuned. Appreciate the support. You can hit us up at Dan Vasco, at Mark Hespin, at FB Lounge Pod. And check us out on the For Fantasy Sake podcast network. Appreciate y'all. We'll see you back here next week.